Good morning. If you're one of our loyal regulars who's listening to us first thing on Sunday morning, then it's great to have you back again this week. Or if it's your first time, maybe you found us through one of the top 10 lists on podcasts worth listening to that seem to be circulating just now. Either way, it's Matthew Grant here, partner at InsTech London and your host for the InsTech London podcast. And I'm delighted to have you today joining us from wherever in the world you are or whatever you are up to. Now, like many of you, the last few months has proved incredibly busy for us at InsTech London, but a great chance to learn more about what is going on around the world, and we are seeing a strong set of themes emerging. If you want to find out more, then check us out at www.instechlondon. Worth signing up for the newsletter too, handwritten and with you every Wednesday at 7 a.m. UK time. Now, one area that is changing a lot is the use of technology to manage claims and fraud, and as you're about to discover, the story of the founding of Albany Group was driven by a gap in the market and the realization by the two founders, Stuart Griffiths and Adam Richards, that there must be a better way to do things than the manual and disconnected processes used by the insurance market for managing suppliers for claims and their other partners. In this episode, I'm joined by Adam and Andy Stevenson. Andy is a former client of Albany, who is now helping the company further expand its business. And as usual, we cover a lot of ground relevant both to those building a new company or those interested in learning more about another company with a growing and engaged client base that you might want to partner with. Adam, Andy, really looking forward to hearing more about Albany today. I think you're a really interesting example of a company that's just been working away, somewhat under the radar, but actually have been building up relationships as you offer your risk and intelligence software out there since 2007. We'll hear shortly about how you've funded that. A really interesting story about how you got there and what you've been doing. So, Adam, first of all, thanks very much for joining us on this episode.
Thank you, Matthew.
Now, you and Stuart, your fellow co-founder, were formerly in the Marines, and I don't think you had a background in software development. So it'd be really interesting to see what took you from that kind of background into offering services for the insurance market.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not the most normal journey. As you said, we haven't got a background in technology or financial services, but our background, as you said, was in the Marines. We came out and realised we weren't quite qualified to do anything else in civvy streets, so we went into the security sector like many others do. From there, it kind of naturally led on to do a lot of investigation work, and as you can imagine, we did a lot of investigation around fraud. That was a pretty successful company at the time, but the reality was that we needed to grow. And so we were looking at all different options and we went down the route of building technology. We thought, naturally, that's going to be an easy thing, being ever the optimists, near financial ruin a couple of times. And we moved into the technology sector and built a team around it.
Through that process, you came across Andy, who was at that point was, I believe, director of claims at Hiscox and is now doing some work with you. But it, again, just always intriguing to know how people found their one of their either first or their early clients.
Yeah, absolutely. So we built an original technology platform called Aura, which was an investigation platform, and we used to utilize that tool when we conducted investigations. And a long-standing client of ours, which was Hiscox Insurance, which Andy was working at the time, started to utilize that tool, but it was also a client of ours for the fraud investigation side of things. That was kind of where our journey began.
And Andy, for you, when you can cast your mind back to those days when Adam came across you or you came across Adam, I mean, what was it about what they were doing that gave you the motivation to sort of work more closely with them? And I guess what commissioned building the software at that stage, if they didn't already have something?
The company, with Adam and Stuart at the figureheads was clearly one that was developing some smart technology. I like the approach. I think the sort of military background these guys have gives them a real sense of discipline and a sense of way of doing things, that everything has its place, everything's done for a reason, everything's engineered very finely, and there isn't really much room for luxury. I don't know if you've ever been on a warship, Matthew, but you don't find many plump leather armchairs and ornaments and Christmas decorations. Things are there for a purpose. Things are done, in a very smart, orderly way, and it's very disciplined. And I found that really, really helpful to what we were trying to do. We had tight budgets, I didn't want any nice to haves. I wanted must haves. And I wanted someone with a real laser focus on delivering exactly what it is we wanted. And I saw that they were capable of doing that.
Well, I haven't been in a battleship, but I've been into the Albany offices, and there's certainly no comfy armchairs in there. So I guess that spirit has...
No slide, no Google slide in there.
No,
we just things that we need.
We'll get one day. And just to clarify on that point, there are a few comfy chairs, but only in the officers' mess, and myself and Stuart were never allowed in there. So we've taken that on board.
So since 2007, Adam, you've progressed, you've built out this technology. For those that aren't familiar with Albany, it would be helpful just to get a perspective on what it is you're actually offering to people and what problems you're solving for your clients.
As I said, we started off sort of in the fraud and investigations sort of / due diligence area, and we moved on from there and started to look at companies, naturally companies that were interacting with insurance companies. Around about 2014, we were approached by Hiscox, which we'd been working with now for several years, and they wanted to look at a product which was around managing their supply chain. First of all, it started in claims, so looking at all their claim suppliers, being able to create a technology solution to manage the sort of day-to-day administration, oversight, sort of regulatory obligations to manage all these different relationships within their claim supply chain. That relationship began very successfully. We built an original product called His Connect. There's also another version of it, which is ours, it's called Connect. And we've gone on to build on that product, re-engineering the product actually last year and continue to work on it. We've got an extensive roadmap going in for the rest of 2020 and into 21.
And Andy, so first of all, you were a client for Albany. You're now working with them, helping design the product. I mean, what kind of problems did you have before you came across Albany in that supply chain area? I mean, is this something that there was already solutions for and they just weren't good enough, or was this something that was actually you kind of had to build your own way of solving the problems?
Yeah, look, Matthew, I think that's the big question, really. Oh, sorry, the big problem, I should say. The big problem was underinvestment in this space. I think if you typically went to, even now, we went to a CEO of an insurance company and said, hey, where on your list of priorities is automating supply chain management and risk management in supply chains? I'm not sure it'd be in the top 10. I mean, the recent pandemic may have moved it up a few slots, but certainly back in 2015, when we were really first wrestling with this problem, most of the investment dollars were still going into distribution channel, policy admin systems, and so on. And really, there wasn't something off the shelf that we could move and use easily in this space. I mean, the FCA, given a catalyst into the system in 2015 with their thematic reviews on delegated authority and really, supply chains, but even still, there were still lots and lots of companies like we were working off spreadsheets and email. And that is still true today, by the way, which is why we still have a very, very valid and interesting offering for people. The silver lining is of that, there having not been too much investment, sort of 5-6 years ago, there aren't the problems with legacy systems. So we can come along with Connect, and we can very quickly jumpstart people from what they're doing today with emails and calendars and file share systems to a proper system that can control everything for them without the issue of this legacy system migration, which is often very, very costly.
Yeah, that whole area of claims, as you say, it is to me still curious. I guess we can sort of understand why it doesn't get attention, but I mean, $1 or £1 saved in the claims handling goes straight to the bottom line, whereas if you're helping people figure out underwriting analytics, and there's still a lot of proof to be done with the data analytics. But interestingly, I don't know if you saw it, but the recent Willis InsurTech quarterly report has got claims as only getting 8% of all the investment going into InsurTech. And we're going to talk in a minute actually a little bit about, Adam, the choices you made about investment. But it is still interesting. That does seem to be an area where it's not getting as much attention. I guess we don't want to give away that too much, given you've built a good business in this area, but clearly there are some real benefits to be had for getting into this and solving the problems earlier rather than trying to figure it out further on down the line.
My only insight into that is typically there are potentially more voices around the exec table from a sales distribution operations channel than there are from claims, and perhaps that dynamic as you describe it isn't as well understood. I mean, I hope I'm not being rude about my insurance exec teams around the market, but I'm sure factually that's probably true.
Adam, I'd just like to talk a bit more about some of your other clients. So you mentioned Hiscox, and I know you're working with some other leading organizations. I think Brit, QBE, you publicly mention. Anybody else you can talk about?
Yeah, so several more syndicates actually in the Lloyd's market. We can't actually mention them by name. I have asked them. Also, Tesco's is another great client of ours, and several other large insurers that are in the sort of domestic market.
So you've kind of got past that early adopter stage, even if you can't name the names, in terms of getting people confident in what they're doing with you. And just on that funding one, a lot of the attention around companies tends to be those that get funding. That certainly helps people accelerate. But you chose to go down this bootstrap route where you funded yourselves. You haven't taken external funding. Presumably on the way, you've had to make some choices, or you've been approached with people offering you funding. I mean, what gave you the confidence to keep going on your own income as opposed to bringing in third-party funding?
To start with, it wasn't really a sort of strategic decision to be bootstrapped. It was more a matter of fact that we already had a fairly successful business. So we were utilising the profits from our investigation work to fund the initial development of the technology. And also, it wasn't an area that we knew well. We didn't realise there was an opportunity to take funding externally. We were always of the mindset that it was sort of the business fundamentals. We had to create something that people were going to buy first before going out into the market and sort of asking people to put their money at risk before we'd even put our own money at risk. It didn't seem like the natural approach. And then it got to the point where we were happy that we were in charge of our own destiny. So we just continued on that vein.
Yeah, it's surprising, I think, to people that aren't following this space quite carefully, how many organizations there are like yourselves who have built business maybe a little bit more slowly, but there's a strong focus on revenue as well as managing the costs. And I think the sort of whole insurtech concept, which sort of took off 5 years ago, has slightly blinded people to some of the opportunities out there with these organizations. I mean, we find that particularly intriguing. I mean, the sort of technology companies that are building this, and you've demonstrated why it works. But it's not easy when you're spending your own money and you've got less buffer if things go wrong. I think you described yourself, Adam, as not a unicorn, but as a camel. I think I understand that what it means. But can you just give me a bit of a perspective on why you like being a camel rather than the unicorn?
Yeah, well, absolutely. That's actually a promotion, because I used to refer to us as cockroaches because we could essentially survive a nuclear winter. We would be the only ones left, if the proverbial hit the fan. But so yeah, I've promoted us now to the camel, which is essentially just about as you can imagine with a camel, it's about cautious approach to financials, building up reserves, so we can survive any drought, potentially going into the sort of the next few years. If we're looking at a recession, there could be some significant funding drought essentially, and we'll survive these times because we've built up reserves over the good times. So sort of preparing for the future with sort of measured strategic growth rather than just growth for the sake of it. So yeah, and it's every technology solution that we create is very much customer focused. And I know that everyone would naturally say that, but we only actually move forward with R&D or move forward with any kind of development on technology, and it's based off specific feedback from clients.
I've heard your clients present in sort of glowing terms about what they're doing with you, so that's definitely true. As you talk about your camel description, I'm thinking there are quite a few sort of top 100 insurtechs out there. I feel there's a need for I don't know it's top 100, but maybe we'll start off with top 25 camels. Just to give a different perspective on things. So yeah, look out for the camel list coming soon. Andy, just coming back to you, Adam just mentioned in passing resilience, but in a slightly different way. But I know one of the areas that you are using, or people are using your products for, is to help with resilience. What's your definition of resilience with regards to how people are using the products?
Resilience is ability to recover quickly, I guess, really. And I think to do that, you need a plan, and you need some knowledge. It's much more difficult to bounce back if you're making it up as you go along. And I think that's where Connect really steps in. It gives you an opportunity to see right through your supply chain. You've got a lot of knowledge. It's up to date, up to the minute, really, typically. And you can then start to make some smart, informed choices based on the data you have and the sort of insights that you can bring. So it's also having that discipline of thinking about it in advance as well. And if you've got a tool that can easily help you do that, then you're more likely to be able to build that into your business processes. I think that, I said already that there are still lots and lots of teams out there operating in this space with cobbled together systems, spreadsheets, post-it notes, and so on. And yes, they may have survived so far like that, but surviving one pandemic doesn't necessarily mean you can survive two, right? So I think there is definitely a need to bring some proper planning, insight, and technology into managing your supply chain to ensure you do have that resilience and that ability to bounce back.
Yeah, and to that point about surviving a pandemic, I mean, people don't issue press releases when things go wrong, or they can sort of struggle through, but there's a lot of collateral damage. So I'm sure the recent events are putting a stress on some of the systems. But it'd be handy, Andy, if you could just talk through, for people that aren't familiar with how claims supply chains work and what kind of data people have access to in terms of the companies they're working with or their own claims handling. I mean, can you sort of describe the way that people are using the products to be able to do that today, and what sort of data they're drawing from and how this integrates into other systems?
Yeah, certainly. Maybe I just give a quick description of what the problem is and why the supply chain process is a little bit broken right now. What I see in developing supply chains at the moment is a lot of information exchange, typically through processes like requests for information or due diligence processes, and they're very administrative heavy. There's a lot of burden on both sides of a negotiation agreement to process information. What Connect does is finds a lot of that information that already exists, because there's a lot of redundancy in the process where people are asking things such as, send me your financial information for the last 5 years. Well, that exists in the public domain, and Connect can help you find that. And then other sorts of documents around your policies and your procedures that you need to share between the two organizations. Connect makes it very easy for those things to be shared. And actually, once you've started to share that with one organization, Connect helps you then share it with others and takes out this sort of redundancy and duplication and having to do a bespoke process every time you want to enter into a new arrangement with another party.
And what about connecting into existing systems? So your clients are going to have policy administration systems, presumably they've got some kind of claim system. Do you hook into that, or are they having to go off and use you as a standalone system?
Yeah, we're very proficient at doing that because our technology allows that to be done very, very simply through APIs. We're a Microsoft Azure cloud technology stack, so that's very easy for us to do. The barriers tend to be the older legacy systems that the insurer or customer is using. I mean, we can work with them to solve that, but it's very easy for our technology to do that.
And then, I don't know who's best to answer this question, but I know one of the features you have is this documentation and audit trail, which is becoming increasingly critical these days. How does that sort of fit into the overall workflow?
Naturally, the whole process of both onboarding and maintaining a regulated relationship with a third party, there needs to be a complete trail from start to finish. What Connect is doing is obviously documenting that relationship from the very start. So from the minute they onboard that customer into the system, they're able to look at all the documentation that's attached to that third party, the financials, company structure, documentation that needs to go back and forth. So an exchange of information is always held within the system, and it gives them the opportunity to have a complete audit trail of the relationship from go live through to, if it lasts for years and years. There's naturally that trail behind that both internal C-suite can monitor, and also external regulators as well,
which is increasingly required by regulation. And you mentioned third-party risk there. I see also you refer to fourth-party risk. I think I can guess what that is, but just to make sure I've got it right. Can you just explain what that means from a sort of practical point of view?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's one thing to monitor the third party, so any company that interacts with you directly, but it's inherently more difficult to look at fourth and fifth and sixth party risk. And the way we look at that and to describe it is, a good example, maybe a building firm that you would instruct directly, they may well have another fourth party that operates on their behalf, so a subcontracted company doing a specific project for them. And then underneath that then could be a fifth and a sixth where they've got their own contracted individuals within the business, and it's inherently difficult to see the relationship, but ultimately it comes back to the insurer is responsible for the service has been provided to the claimant. So it's about trying to monitor all of these different entities. If you can have proper, strong oversight of both your third parties and potentially your fourth parties, you're then in a greater position to be able to monitor the chain all the way through. It doesn't matter how many people are actually involved in delivering a service.
Yeah, I mean, that's a problem for the area you're looking after, but it's also a problem, but also an opportunity in the broader insurance area of business interruption and contingent business interruption, and that whole supply chain failure, which has been shown time and time again when there are major losses and you get a concentration or correlation of loss because people didn't understand the supply chains. I mean, it's an area I think that's still got lots of opportunity for people to figure out how to help identify those. So just one other one I wanted to come on to, Adam. Again, your website is rich in useful terms, but again, I don't want to guess what this is. I think I've got an idea. You talk about the speed gun effect. Can you explain what that means?
A part of Connect is about monitoring performance, and naturally we can do that in many ways, but there's a wider piece around performance as well, is that when a third-party company feels like they're being properly managed, there's proper oversight of the services that they're providing on your behalf, naturally their performance goes up. So we coined it the speed gun effect because, when you're driving down the road and you naturally get a speed gun put at you, you slow down and stick to 70. We're seeing over a period of time the supply is improving, the performance, the level of feedback that they're getting, the information flow that's going back and forth between the insurer and themselves, just gradually improving because they feel like there's proper oversight as to what they're doing.
Yeah, it's an interesting twist on the speed angle, which generally I'd say is a good thing in terms of development, but you're using it here as a way of analogous for indicating or finding out what the key risk indicators are early and before they escalate, but by actually hopefully you see the speed gun and slow down as opposed to get a ticket for going too fast.
Second aspect to that as well, to add to what Adam said, which is it also acts as an alerting. If you have a speed gun set up and suddenly 3:00 in the morning everybody's rushing through there and setting it off, then it's telling you something's happening. And that's a little bit about what Connect does as well, that continuous monitoring. If then suddenly there is an alert because lots and lots of conditions are being tripped, then it's telling you something and you can react very, very quickly to that.
Is there also potential, or maybe you're doing it already with your clients' permission, to actually look across different insurance companies that are using your systems and start to see those kind of signals in certain areas or by certain suppliers, as you sort of aggregate those and then can warn other people if maybe they don't see the signals so early?
Yes, absolutely. The idea being is that we've created what we call the Connect community. So it's an opportunity for all of our customers to interact normally on a quarterly basis, but also we'll feed information back up through the chain where we're seeing potential hotspots or problems or potentially a specific issue with one or two suppliers. It may even be based around jurisdiction. We can feed that up the line. So we're trying to sort of take our intel background and utilize it and be able to feed information back up the chain to reduce risk, improve resilience, as we've spoken about before, and just provide a wider service to everyone involved. And as we bring on each new customer, obviously that sort of network expands and the opportunity to identify potential issues as early as possible becomes greater.
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic business model, that network effect, because as you say, the more you have, the more the community builds out, the more value there is, the more sort of higher resolution analytics you can do. So no, it's great to hear that one working well. And then just talking a bit about coding, but you also, when we spoke before, mentioned the no code environment. So is that the approach you're taking for building the software, just going for no code?
Yes, absolutely. So our original product was very code heavy. Every time we wanted to make a change, it had to be done the back end, and it was inherently slow and inherently expensive, and it wasn't practical. We sort of rebuilt the technology from the ground up at the start of 2019 and released it earlier in 2020 into a complete no-code environment. I don't think any technology solution now that's being released should be heavy code base at the back. It should be a no-code environment. And when we talk about that, it's just essentially giving the end user the ability to completely configure, everything within the platform, everything that you can change, even down to the most basic things like titles or the names of different parts of the system. Everything can be changed by the front end user, by essentially someone who has a God login. They can go in and actually change everything. Workflows, MI, all these different things that you expect from a technology solution is all being created and done by the super users at the front.
That was God login, was it? That's a technical term for an administrator.
Yeah, we came up with them. It seems to be quite popular, so we've kept it. Someone loves being called getting a God login, so we've kept that non-technical term.
And do you build the code in house, or do you subcontract to somebody else?
No, absolutely. We all build it in house. We originally tried to work with another technology company, but as I think I mentioned, we nearly went pop several times when we worked with other firms. So we thought the only way to do it is actually do it in house. So we very slowly created our own team, and now we're fortunate enough to have a 15-strong development team based down in Bristol.
And just, I mean, for people who are listening who are maybe at an earlier stage and looking for their technology partners, I mean, that's a choice, isn't it? Is if bringing somebody in either as a co-founder or a sort of very early employee to be the sort of CTO or something equivalent, or go and partner people. And notwithstanding that you had a failure, which, that knowing the details could well have just been because you had a bad supplier as opposed to the concept was bad. If you were to look at doing this again, or advice for other people, maybe it might be a better way to put it where we are today. What's your recommendation? Is it to go and find somebody in a team, or is it better off to start working with an organization where you can move more quickly initially and get off the ground?
Yeah, I think it's changed a lot. When we were initially sort of looking for technology companies, this was probably about 7 years ago now. Things have moved on. There's lots of fantastic outsourced technology firms. I think the opportunity to be able to partner with one, it gives you obviously a chance to regulate your cash flow. When you're employing people, naturally it comes with a lot of expenditure and an inherent risk as well, and you're playing with people's lives to a certain degree, of which I'm always very conscious of. When you employ someone, you have to sort of commit to them. But with the third-party companies out there, there's many good ones, obviously onshore as well, and also offshore, or I think the new term is nearshore as well. Some fantastic companies over in Eastern Europe that are giving companies the opportunity to create technology very quickly and fairly cheaply as well. So I think if I was to do it all again, I would really seriously look at that option. That said, I very much like having real sort of, it's a military term, but the command and control of it. I'm in charge of the people that are around me. So, if we need something done and we need it quickly, we're working as one unit all the time. Whereas with a third party, sometimes they might have, other things that are priority to them. And it normally comes down to, with any third party, whoever's paying them the most probably comes higher on the food chain. So there's risks on both sides, but I think there is really good opportunities now to work with other companies.
No, thanks. That's really helpful. So just as we kind of get to a close, what should people look out for next that you've got coming up?
Yeah, so we've got some real sort of big plans for the rest of the year. Massive technology roadmap, some really exciting things. Some things that I can mention, something I can't. We're working heavily on more workflow, more MI data. Obviously, the Connect communities, helping influence that roadmap as well. Earlier in the year, we set up another office in Gibraltar, and we're also planning to set up an office in Sydney as well later in the year. So that's really exciting. Another big one, we've got a first major US insurer that's going onto the platform in August, which is fantastic. We've only really ever worked in the UK and continental Europe. And also a bit of a personal one to myself and Stuart as well. We're setting up a side of the business where we're taking some of the profit of the business and putting it towards homeless veterans. And that's going to become an official sort of charity to the side of the business. And that should be up and running later in the year. So that's really exciting.
Oh, congratulations! Got a lot going on. And Andy, what about you? Is there anything else to add to that, or anything you personally are getting involved with?
Yeah, we have another product that we are in the process of delivering, actually, and really, it's early stages, so probably best not to share too much. But essentially, we're looking to make it easier for new entrants into the insurance market. So, if I'm, for example, a construction firm, and I want to understand how can I do work for insurance companies, we're going to make that very easy for them by providing a way of bringing them into onboarding them into the insurance market and making it easy for insurers to find them. So really, again, reducing frictional costs of operating in the insurance market and improving opportunities for improved competition.
A dating app for claims
It's
suppliers.
not far off.
Yeah,
not far off, actually. We haven't quite called it that. Ecosystem is more what we were calling it, but why not? Dating app. There we go.
Oh, fantastic! No, really great.
One other thing as well to add, Matthew, is we've spoken very heavily about claims, but actually our technology solution is being used outside of claims. That was where it was born, and that's where it's heavily being used. But it's also being used to manage brokers, manage IT vendors, legal providers. So it really is being used across the supply chain of the whole of the insurance industry.
So that's a good link, Adam, to my sort of almost final question, which is for people that want to know more about you and specifically that kind of information about what you're doing or other areas you're getting involved with. What's the best way to learn more?
Come to the website. Please get in touch with us directly. We're always around. We're based on Threadneedle Street in the city, so everyone is welcome to come and see us. Hopefully, when the whole world comes back and the city comes back, please get in touch. There's lots of information. We've got on LinkedIn, Twitter, all the usual places.
Good, and we'll put those in the episode notes. But it's Albany Group for people that are trying to find you. And then, so finally, we're delighted to have you supporting us at InsTech London, and it's always great to hear why people do that. So you sort of wrap up with a few final words on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been coming to your events for quite a while now, and obviously seen the growth, which has been huge, and the people that are getting involved, and the amount of people that you get into a room each time you do an event, I think is fantastic, and the work that's going into it. So for us, it was a no-brainer to be involved.
Great. Well, no, thank you for support, and hopefully we'll be getting all those people back into the room again soon once we reduce the social distancing to about 10 centimeters and we can all squeeze in again and have fun. But no, thank you very much for your support. Adam, Andy, it's been great talking to you. And as I said, we'll put the information on the episode notes, and look forward to catching up again in the year. Sounds like things are moving very fast. So a lot to look out for.
Thank you, Matthew. Really appreciate it.
Well, we're delighted to have Albany as one of our corporate members. And if you'd like to learn more about what InsTech London can do for you, then do take a look at the website, www.instech.london, or contact me, Matthew Grant, via LinkedIn, or email us at hello@instech.london. That's it for this week, and look forward to hearing from you, or you will be hearing from us next Sunday morning. Bye for now.